Welcome back to the Law of Precision, the second installment of the WristClocks series. If you haven't heard the first book yet, that will be linked down below. You'll find the full playlist available on my channel if you would like to skip around any place. For those returning, let's continue. This is chapter 13 and chapter 14. Chapter 13, The Weight of the Pendulum. The victim had been propped up like the others, wrist exposed. The carved time read 3:06. Clean, shallow, like the killer had been cautious. Too cautious. Same carving, same placement, but something's off, Brant muttered. LeClaire knelt near the body. The wound was precise, yes, but the expression, almost peaceful, felt different from the others. Look at the eyes, he said. Brant leaned close, frowning. They're closed. All the others were open. LeClaire nodded. He hesitated. Or something changed. Either way, this isn't just copy-paste. The Amy approached quietly behind them. No sign of worse trauma, she continued. But she wasn't moved like the others. Everything here was gentler. The car straightened. Either refining it or slipping, Brant finished. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't right either. She didn't fight, didn't scream. I thought it would make it cleaner, make it pure, but the carving felt soft, unworthy. It didn't click like the others. 3:06. Not panic, not grief. A soft tick between bold hours. Is it the time, the placement, or was it me? He would know. He would see the deviation. But I can't follow. Not before I find him. Not before I'm allowed to join. The 7th will be perfect. It has to be. He rearranged a folded letter beneath his pillow, next to the blade. The 7th name was written in pencil on the back. He hadn't made a decision about her yet. That made it feel cleaner. He saved the email. Still hadn't sent it. Not yet. Not until the gears locked into place. The imposter hadn't left his motel in 3 days. Crumpled fast food bag sat on the window ledge. Smell had begun to rot. Michael didn't blink. He had traced the killing back to the boy, child found near the abandoned silo. The news had blamed it on a drifter. Then nothing at all. But Michael had seen the photos. The boy's wrists had been carved, but wrongly. And later, weeks later, the imposter had begun copying more. He found a journal, the boy's words, the boy's rituals. That had been the origin. The clock had started ticking that day, and now it was out of sync. Michael exhaled, watching the sky turn violet. Not much longer now. He listened to the air move. Time didn't speak in words. It clicked, it chimed, it remembered. He had let the world continue while his hands remained still. But now imitators sprang up like weeds in a manicured garden. Michael was loyal, but even loyalty rests with neglect. He had left the boy behind, failed to find him in time. Child's silence was the loudest deviation of all, but he had learned from it. That made him salvageable. The other, the follower, was still forming, still brittle. Some blades cut clean, others splinter the gear. He stood before his wall of watches, each still ticking. He touched one marked with a red thread, 3:06. Deviation is an echo. If it grows, the pendulum must fall. The connection between the first 4 victims was still unclear, but the 5th had shaken the rhythm. She wasn't supposed to be next, Claire said, flipping through background files. Brant nodded. And none of the previous 4 were female. That's our shift. They sat in silence for a moment. Claire opened the drawer and voided, till now, the one labeled Cold Cases, Temporal Pattern, 2011, 2013. He pulled a name, Maddox Crane, a maintenance worker who had vanished 3 days after his supervisor died of a suspected overdose. The name had shown up on 2 zoning permits connected to the first victim. And handwritten in the corner of the page, M was here, time was kept. Brant looked over his shoulder. Who the hell keeps time with corpses? LeClaire whispered. Someone we haven't met yet. Chapter 14. Caseboard. The board now covered the entire wall. Threads stretched taut between pinned photos, names, addresses, and case files. 6 victims confirmed. Each carved, each was placed deliberately. Each is tied to something just out of reach. Detective Elijah Brant uncapped a marker and wrote at the top of the board in blocky letters, "The law of precision." Marcus LeClaire raised an eyebrow. "You're finally calling it that?" Brant nodded. "We've got clocks carved into wrists, times that don't line up with the cause of death, and now 2 photos sent anonymously, with timestamps and symbolism. Precision may be the only thing that makes sense." Marcus stepped forward. "Let's go through them again." He gestured to the first victim. Bryce Deaton, 6 o'clock. A factory floor supervisor, found on a back porch, died of exsanguination. Carving was clean, deliberate. Background check showed he had denied dozens of safety reports linked to the factory's original lead exposure complaints during the 2011-2013 zoning period. His file was half redacted, Marcus muttered. But now, we found a letter on record from Emilia Carr backing his position. Brant tapped the photo. His hands helped write the first exemptions, whether he knew it or not. They moved to the second. Ronald Teague, 8:15. Building inspector, male, 58. Found behind the public library. The toxicology report revealed a small dose of cyanide, resulting in quick death. Carving was exact. Internal Affairs had once flagged him on taking bribes. One bribe helped push through the rezoning waiver for the plant in 2012. Brant shook his head. No charges ever stuck. still, Marcus said. The killer's tracking patterns no one else did, watching time like it's proof. Darren Kravitz, 3'11", contractor, male, 48. The photo had been mailed in, seated at a cafe table, looking away. The body was staged at the train station. Wrist still bore the carving, face was obscured by blood. He was involved in the post-accident remodel contract. Brandt said, got a bonus when ventilation protocols were ignored. He was moved. Marcus said, that's new. This was a message. Ernest Harrow, 206, foreman, male, 71. File heavily redacted. A former employee of the same plant disappeared from records shortly after Dean's second complaint expression was filed. Died in 2016, ruled natural causes, until his body was exhumed last month. Fresh carving on a year-old corpse. Brandt frowned. I still don't understand how that one happened. Someone wanted to rewrite his time, Marcus said. Eleanor Voss, 106. Board member, female, 68. Wealthy, connected, far from innocent. Photo mailed in, posed in front of a broken clock. No carving on the body, but the symbolism was clear. One of the original voices silencing the lead poisoning class action claim. A philanthropist in public, a ruthless executive behind closed doors. Brandt stared at the image. She knew the truth, just made sure no one else did. Marcus added, that broken clock is the first major deviation from the original pattern. Grace Delaney, 306, female, 22. Former line worker at the factory. Diagnosed with terminal lead poisoning at 20. Found seated against a fountain, wrists exposed, carving shallow. No signs of struggle or restraint. Her death was almost peaceful, Brandt said softly. She was a mercy, Marcus replied. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Brandt stepped forward. One more thing. Each ties back to the original lead case, not just as names, but as pieces of a larger structure. Deaton and Harrow enforced silenced. Teague improved shell permits. Boss and Carr protected the top. Kravitz built over the damage. Grace suffered the result. Marcus looked up. So who's next? Brandt didn't speak for a while. Then he circled a name that had stayed pinned but untouched until now. Amelia Carr.